you guys heard of the term black fatigue? Mm-hmm. You guys know what that means?
Since the last time you came, that's become a thing.
Yeah, I was about to say, that's just become a recent thing.
And do you know what it means?
No, I'm not sure.
I'm going to ask that.
White people are 12 times as likely to be killed by a black person than the other way around. I'm just going to shoot you straight. It's not even close.
Where?
Across the country.
Ain't nobody coming after you. You know what I'm saying? Like, nobody tripping on you. But these people in just as scared as the other folks.
They are if they get on a bus.
Not necessarily.
They are if they get on a train.
That lady wasn't in danger because that man was black. That lady was in danger because that man was crazy.
Nope.
Whenever we want to ask for equality and fairness, it's a problem. So white America.
So it spends several $1 trillion. When is it enough?
We're the bird.
No.
We're the bird. You're not stopping white America from doing anything.
You know what? The bird just burned down $4 billion worth of cities and 60,000 assaults.
No. There's 3 times to 4 times as much homework than the black kid, and the white kid does 2 to 3. Why?
Because it's culturally, it's conditioned.
Exactly.
So why is it better parenting from Asians than white parents? Why?
You said what?
Well, we're having real talk. Why do young black men fight in packs? So a couple of years ago, when I started Black and White on the Gray Issues, I sensed some growing discontent, or more of a racial divide in America than I'd experienced in my lifetime, and it seemed to be egged on by legacy media.
It's sad to see a lot of people going along with it.
The American people have felt safe in their home.
But people who had absolutely no chance of victory.
Hate and racism towards black and brown people.
And as that evolved, and for the first time I walked into Stevie J's barbershop, I really was looking to sit down and talk with, but mainly listen to real black Americans living the real American black experience, to see whether they shared the viewpoints of a lot of the public representatives, the now networkless Joy Reids of the world, or back then the Don Lemons, what they wanted me to believe.
I realized that CNN and MSNBC were full of shit.
And overall, it was a largely warm, productive conversation. I think served its purpose. You can go check out that video to see what it was like. Fast forward to now, and not only have things not really improved, and according to many Americans, they're markedly worse. And if listening is important, I noticed that a lot of white Americans felt pushed to a point that they weren't even fully comfortable expressing. But for the most part, when they did, their communication was pretty restrained. Then it was dialed up to near boiling point with the recent cold-blooded murder of Irina Zarutska.
The unthinkable happens. You see Brown pull out what officials say was a pocket knife. He unfolds it, then stands up behind Zarutska. What we aren't showing you is the moment where Brown then stabs Zarutska several times and walks away.
And that murder taking place at the hands of a black man who was arrested at least 14 times and released largely in the name of racial justice, spurred a reaction from white Americans that, frankly, is unsurprising. And truth be told, for young white Americans, is understandable. And it would be doing America no favors to completely ignore the discontent of young white Americans who, if you listen to them, definitely will make the case that they have been vilified and asked to foot the bill for original sin or crimes that they've never committed.
They owe each of us $300K. So I don't care how they get the money. That's not my problem. I just want my money. A debt is owed. You owe a debt. You have to pay it.
And if you marginalize that entire segment, that voice of the country, that will lead to quote-unquote radicalization. And if this country wants to avoid that, or at the very least, as we've done in the past, understand that there needs to be a major course correction in the approach to communication. That needs to go both ways. And that's why this time, I didn't visit the barbershop merely to listen, but to communicate a very real set of grievances that could bubble into massive consequences. This one goes a little bit of a different direction compared to last time. This is Black and White on the Gray Issue.
And that's Stevie right there, the blue shirt.
Blue shirt? Oh,
Yes,
Steven.
sir.
And I met Cedric. I think I scared him. I think he was.
How you doing, man?
Hey,
you doing all right?
Yeah, man. How you doing? Good to see you. I need it. You guys all have your beards nice and right. I've never learned how to do this shit.
It's because people come here.
Oh, I see what it is. It's a power move. You have me sitting lower.
Yeah, so we can all look down on you.
No, thanks. Well, they said you guys got some people coming in here after the last one?
Yeah, a couple people came
They just
through.
felt like, I think this is the place where white and black people have conversations.
So it was funny. The first person that came last time was he said this out of his own mouth. He was like, I'm Indian, but he had on a MAGA hat.
Okay.
And he walked in and was like, hey, I saw you guys on Crowder. Can I get a cut here? Yeah, I guess so, man. Come on.
Did you have your hand on your piece? You're like, I don't know if you come.
Nah, because he didn't come like that. He didn't have the backpack and the ski mask on. Yeah, he didn't have that on.
Was he nice? Was he good?
It's cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
What do you guys think like when you see someone with a MAGA hat? Because I know we were kind of talking about that last time.
It depends on how they present themselves. To me.
Yeah.
For me.
Well, okay. So like, what would present themselves in a way that would be like decent versus piece of shit?
Yeah. How some people carry that air of superiority.
Yeah.
And if you present that to me, I'm very conscious of that. If you present that to me, I'm gonna respond appropriately.
Yeah.
That's just me personally.
What would be like an air of superiority, like?
Just like certain things you say in conversation, and like you said, just in the physical nature of these chairs. Well, in conversation, you can physically go up and down and put yourself above or beneath. So when people do that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned that because I actually, when I do the change my minds and sit with people, I actually kind of slump my shoulders and deliberately kind of make myself smaller just to not. It's like what is it? The crab that has the red under its claws is showing danger. So I don't wear red. Because apparently that signifies poison. But yeah, no, there's all these body languages experts now. You watch on TV, and I'm like, this seems like horse shit. Like, he looks to the left, so you can tell he's lying.
Yeah, some of it is horse.
It's like, I saw him on camera. He killed his girlfriend with a butter dish. I don't give a shit what he says.
He took too long to say that answer. He had to think about it. No, he's thinking about what he wants to say.
Yeah.
He don't just spit shit out. He wants to. Think about what he's saying.
Last time we talked, we were kind of just, and the reason was just like, often you see in news, people just kind of siphon themselves off right into an echo chamber. And I thought it was good. We were just kind of able to see other perspectives. Where do you think the country is now? Like with that? Like,
is that an open question? Or?
Yeah, race relations between, because last time I wanted to get your perspective, and there's a perspective now in the white community. None of us are an ambassador for the entire community, but things have changed quite a bit the last year and a half. Temperatures have gone up. But what do you guys think? What do you think we are in the country?
I'd like to chime in on that.
Yeah.
I'm happy you asked that question. There are a lot of social and economic dynamics at play that have certainly gone, in my opinion, in the wrong direction. I don't think that people really understand the gravity of where we're headed. We are vastly sliding into an autocratic regime here. And absolutely. I'll give you several reasons. You see, in order to have, you can't have a one-dimensional approach when you're wanting to continue to lead from a global perspective, all right? What you see here today is an isolationism approach which has never worked in the past because we don't have an understanding of geography and history, all right? And I'll just simply close by saying, you got to understand something. The rest of the world is grossly infuriated with the way America has taken shape. And not only that, we're ceding all our best opportunities to China, right? Look around you in the relationships they're fostering with everybody else, which includes Canada, Mexico, and they've even gone as far down into the Latin American corridor, fortifying their bases while we're still hollering that we're the greatest.
You talking about China, like in the Panama Canal?
Not just the Panama Canal. Let's pivot from the Panama Canal and let's look at the long-term strategy they have now, where they just signed an agreement with Mexico to build another canal bypassing the Panama Canal. And when you look at the whole transatlantic corridor where you got now Brazil and Canada as well as Mexico trading, and they stopping in Peru where China has a huge presence at, circumventing completely the navigation, the use that comes with having to use the Panama Canal. So we'll avoid conflict with America and just simply go around America is what's happening here.
Talking about China?
Absolutely.
Yeah. No, I mean, I want to agree with the first part, autocratic. I think China needs to be dealt with, and this is the first time we are. I'm Canadian. Well, I was raised in Canada. Canada sucks. Canada is a dog shit country. Canada, the kind of shit we're doing, you can't do this in Canada. If you say something too offensive or I say something too offensive, you will be jailed in Canada.
Yeah.
That's the thing. Yeah. So I'm fine with the U.S. being the best country. I came here from Canada because, I mean, I have friends who were arrested. I had a friend, stand-up comic, was fined for telling a joke. I don't think people realize how good we have it here in this country compared to other countries.
But that's the painstaking part about it all is the fact that, you know, I've always been one to say, and I believe this firmly, freedom is not a right. It's a privilege until you wake up the next morning and find out you don't have it anymore.
Yeah. It also comes with duties.
That's what I was about to say. It also comes with responsibilities because while we free to speak and say what we want, and I went to Montreal a few months ago, so I know exactly what you're talking about.
Bet you saw a lot of tits on signs. That's all it is.
No, I didn't.
It's just strip clubs. Our Times Square is a giant strip club.
It was a couple of them.
Yeah.
But no, like there is responsibility and like everybody's from different places, different backgrounds. Some of us from certain backgrounds know like running your mouth too much in a certain space can get your ass whooped.
Yeah.
Like you free to say what you want, you're just not free from the consequences. Like the consequences that come with you saying the wrong thing at the wrong time to the wrong person.
Yeah.
And that's where we all have responsibilities in what we say and when we say it.
Yeah. The problem, though, too, and I was kind of talking more domestically, the problem with that idea is a lot of people are offended by different things. Mm-hmm. And so people get their ass whooped for something they didn't say, right? That's the real thing. I don't know if you guys were following the stabbing there on that train in Charlotte, Irina Zarutska. Last time I was asking where you guys thought we were, you know, as far as in the country relation. Like, have you guys heard of the term black fatigue? Mm-hmm. Yeah. You guys know what that means?
Since the last time you came, that's become a thing.
Yeah, I was about to say that's just become a recent thing.
And do you know what it means?
No, I'm not sure.
I'm going to ask that you enlighten me.
Yeah, it's a term that's being used by people in the white community, by and large, again, saying they feel like they've been victimized and they're tired of taking that shit. You know, that was a girl who was dying alone in public. And that was a guy who was let out 14 times, including violent crimes in the name of racial justice, right? He didn't have to post bail. He didn't have to appear back in court. This is not the first time he's assaulted someone.
How do we know that was in the interest of racial justice as opposed to just being
because the judge said it.
A fucked up attempt at justice, period.
Yeah.
Like the legal system has its flaws.
Yeah.
And people have been making complaints about that for decades, right? But that's just, to me, that's a mental health thing more than it's a black and white thing.
Well, I'll tell you why, because white people are saying it now.
Right.
Not just white people are saying, hey, we're in the city.
That's what makes it a bigger thing.
Well, because, you know, white people are 12 times as likely to be killed by a black person than the other way around. I'm just going to shoot you straight. It's not even close.
Where?
Across the country.
Where? Like, not in...
The United States. I mean, we're not talking about Ghana.
And like...
Yeah.
What I'm saying is, in white communities or in quote-unquote so-called white communities?
Across the country, the rate is a black man or person, because most murders men. There are very few female murders. 12 times more likely to kill a white person the other way around. And then you look at the average amount of times that someone in this country is arrested before they're brought in for killing, charged with murder. Do you know how many times they're arrested on average before they murder? 11 times.
Once again, the justice system's got its flaws, and people have been complaining about that for years. We spend more time trying to fix that than trying to complain about the white versus black of it all.
Well, I think, just like I was trying to listen to all communities last time, I think this is something that's unavoidable. If this community, if enough white people get pissed off, they're going, look, we're living in New York now, we're getting killed in record numbers, or Detroit, 12 times the rate. And our system, 3 strikes in California, right? That was a 3-strike policy. The reason that was changed, they said it was racist. Crime went down in black communities 30%. But now people are looking at their cities going, this is a fucking hellscape. And the murders skyrocketed because people said in the name of racial justice, like 3 felonies, you're out.
Because crime is crime, right? But crime is usually going to be higher concentrated in areas where there's high poverty. So typically the areas that's high poverty in this country are areas with people with this color skin. So that's why you're gonna have that. That's why I said those numbers could be skewed and made to manipulate to look like, oh yeah, that's why I said in
not at 12 times the rate. Not at 12 times the rate.
In suburban neighborhoods, white people are not in danger, and that's what this kind of fear mongering tells them is that you're in danger because you're 12 times more likely to get killed by a black person. You live in fucking ain't nobody coming after you. You know what I'm saying? Like ain't nobody tripping on you. But these people are just as scared as the other folks. That
they are if they get on a bus.
Not necessarily.
They are if they get on a train.
That lady wasn't in danger because that man was black. That lady was in danger because that man was crazy.
Nope.
That man was mentally insane.
But why was he back on
family members? He had his own family members call the hospital to try to get him committed. He told his sister he killed that woman because he thought she was trying to read his mind.
Yep. Why was he let out, though? And I'm not saying it's because he's black.
Yeah,
I'm saying people look at it, though. The judge said
part of black fatigue.
He's insane, right? We agree.
That's not a black and white issue.
He was deemed not fit to stand trial, right?
Right.
Now,
he should have been institutionalized.
Right. The IOU policy, meaning you don't have to pay bail. You don't even have to stay here until you're actually convicted. You just say you'll come back.
Right, which is messed up.
Yeah, the judge, Teresa Stokes, black woman, said, well, this is about racial justice. We need to be softer on crime. So that's her reasoning. That's why he was out. And you can find dozens of examples.
That's her misguided reasoning.
And that's policy.
But that's systemic, though, right?
That's not representative of a whole.
It's not. It's not. No, and look, we always have to say not all. Like not all white people wear MAGA hats and are dumbass pieces of racist shit. But we have all been accused of racism, sexism, misogyny, homophobia. What I'm saying is black fatigue is white people going, you know what? I know I'm not racist. And I know that we're dealing with record crime, and I know that I'm more at risk. And they have negative interactions, and they're constantly told that they're not allowed to voice their fucking opinion because they're white. And if those people get pissed off, like that's where we actually could end up with some kind of, I'm telling you, I see this brewing. I see people who were milquetoast white suburban who are becoming actually racist. Now, not all of them, but I've seen people actually become racist because they get mugged, their store gets looted, and nothing gets done. They're going, and if I say something, it's turned into a racing. I'm telling you what, that's where it's coming from. At what point do we have a talk and go like, okay, let's reform justice, but we have to be honest as to why it was reformed in the first place. This guy, it's not even the only one. It's every 3 days someone's being offed.
Yeah, but at the same time, let's transfer that over to, there's a lot of unsafe things in this world. Like getting mugged by a black person is not the paramount unsafe thing. There's school shootings, there's road rage, there's all of that shit.
Yep.
And the primary people that commit a lot of those are people who don't have this skin.
No.
So if switch it over, if black people say, well, we getting fed up and we tired of all these school shootings and all of these road rage and all that, who do we say something to? Who hears our voice?
And when does the white fatigue kick in?
And when does the white fatigue kick in?
Well, we've been hearing about white, that's the point, right? We've been hearing about it all our lives, about white fatigue, about systemic discrimination.
But nothing's ever been done. That's the problem.
It has been done. That's why we've done systemic justice reform that has led to more crime, right? That's the reason for no 3-strike policy. That's the reason for cashless bail. That's the reason for catch and release. The reason for it, in the wake of Black Lives Matter, George Floyd riots, Summer of Love, was we're going to reform crime, we're going to reform the justice system, and it's gotten worse everywhere it's been. And then when white people leave those neighborhoods, well, now it's white flight. If they come in, it's gentrification. And I'm telling you, there are a lot of people who are pissed off, and they're not going to sit down and have this conversation and be real about it. And they're going, well, what happens when someone has to keep their mouth shut about everything?
Nobody tell you have to keep
That's how they feel. That's how they feel.
I don't believe white people have to keep their mouth shut. I think white people don't speak up about a lot of the things that they do and they perpetuate that affects us negatively. That's the stuff that nobody wants to, that the issues aren't made about those things. I really respect the platform that you have because you do have open and honest conversations. And I have to say, I don't believe that those numbers about the black people murdering white people are correct. I don't believe those numbers are correct.
What if they are? What if I'm not lying to you?
If you're not, then I've been misled and I've been isolated from realistic numbers. But I know in this country, from the time that we got here and until now, there's never been hordes of black people that just go out and maraud and menace white people. Interactions happen and things do occur. I'm not saying that they don't, but not by and large in number. We can't be this smaller percentage of the overall population and still have the numbers that people try to perpetuate onto us. See, black people do more harm to other black people than we do to other white people.
Well, that's true. That's true. Because people who are close. That's true.
We also have historical evidence of groups of white people attacking and chasing black people.
So it's
coming after.
So
Like,
when people
we have
say
historical
it's not
evidence
happening
of it.
now.
So when
I'm just saying,
and that's the point. Is we're at a
that's-
precipice right now.
That's a part of the historical condition.
Well, sure, but someone today who's,
Hold on. I wasn't
Big
finished
Mike,
making
go.
my point.
Sorry,
I
bro.
wasn't finished making my point. You know, when like I said, black fatigue, that's the newest mantra that's been put out into society to make people think that, okay, they tired of black people. They tired of what you said, that we can't say anything about black people. We can't do. Well, when you hold all the power, when you hold all the economic rights, when you hold all the things that make this country move, when you're in charge of those things, you know what I'm saying? Well, you know what? I put it like this. White people got the firecrackers, we got the stem. That's it. Y'all got the power. The power is placed outside of the black community. We're charged with all the negative things. Those are the things that are really generally coincide with how people relate to us. The bad stuff that's go wrong with this world is the black people's fault. We the smallest part of this country. Remember that. You know what I'm saying? Beside the immigrants that come here, we have been tasked with the negative, the criminal, the immoral. That's us, and that's what we consider. That's white fatigue. But you know what we do? We just say that's just how it's always been. So we don't make up words for it or terms for it. So now you have a frustrated group of white constituents that feel like, oh, we can't say anything. We have to do this. We have to do that so you don't be deemed as that. Well, if you wasn't that in the beginning to start with, there would be no need for the reform or the feelings that you have. You can't say anything about because you done treated us like shit for so long, and people finally stood up and said, hey, you got to stop treating us like shit. Now that you want to feel like, you know, things aren't going in the manner that you want them, now we want the right to keep saying those things.
What if your premise is completely flawed? And what I mean by that is, if we're trying to understand it, you said you have power in all those institutions.
Yes.
What if, for example, you have an entire generation of people, young white men, women, who if they apply to a college or apply to a job, they don't have a grant, there's no Pell Grant, there's no type of subsidy, there's no DEI initiative. As a matter of fact, they're likely to be passed over. They hold no institutional power. And when you say black people haven't done anything, when you think of this white person, a young white person, because I'm seeing some people become radicalized and it can become a problem. Yeah. And then they see billions of dollars and riots and damages all summer long, and then they go, why is this happening? Black Lives Matter, right? So they're going to make that connection. Now they have no institutional power, but if they go into a neighborhood that's largely black, they're going to get the shit kicked out of them. And they're being blamed for something that supposedly their racist forefather did that they have nothing to do with. You think we're ever going to have unity? This is the problem. Unity, if let's say your dad's a or your grandfather's a and you walk up and you slap his teenager, you now have made that person hate you for life. And that's what I'm seeing with not even my generation. Younger people are going, I had nothing to do with this shit. They came up during the riots. They've come up under DEI, and they're seeing a 12-time murder rate, skyrocketing crime, and any proposals they make, not holding institutional power, shut down as racist.
Now, why was DEI even instituted in the first place? Because for the majority of time that black people have been in this country and been free, we've been denied so much. Somebody somewhere had to put some things in place to provide access of some kind.
If you believe that, that's fine, but you can't tell that young white kid who had nothing to do with it that he should just sit down and take it, especially when they're getting killed at 12 times a day.
That's what America's been telling us for the longest.
The young white man that has to
not in my
deal with
lifetime.
DEI, the young person of this generation that you said that feels they're misled by the being mistreated by the DEI.
I'm just using as an example. They don't hold any institutional power. Young white people don't. They don't have an advantage.
Not yet, because they're young white people. They haven't advanced to where they're middle-aged white people, where the power comes. See, what black people, once again, when you got colleges that denied access to black people, you can't come here. Something had to be put in place. Well, look, y'all got to let some black people come here. Y'all can't just exclude
that started happening long before DEI. Long before black people were admitted into colleges, HBCUs.
Hold on, let me say what I'm trying to say.
My bad. I'm trying to make it clear.
He's trying to do a senior Wences and talk through you. So
well, because you trying to.
No, I get it.
DEI is just a new way of wrapping affirmative action.
Yeah.
Affirmative action had to be put in place because there was the access being denied. So somewhere, the legislation had to be put in place. Well, look, we can't just exclude all of them. So somewhere along the line, they have to be allowed some access. Okay, that was put in place. Now, fast forward till now, those same things that were put in place for those people back in those generations that are still in place, they're not excluding people from getting to places they're just still trying to keep those doors open so that those black people that were coming through that door can still get in. Because if you remove those, over time, we will be denied the access again.
If a black person has lower SATs, right, and lower GPA, should he get in over an Asian or a white person?
Let me ask.
If all things are supposed to be laid out equal, no, you shouldn't get. If you don't have it,
that's what's happening.
What it takes to get in. No, but
it is happening, and I'm telling you, young white dudes are pissed.
That's
I'm
not
telling
the majority of what's happening.
It is happening.
It is happening. Relates to DEI. First of all, DEI has been more beneficial. I'm a former commercial contractor, all right? DEI and affirmative action have benefited white people vastly more so than black people. All you gotta do is look at the business ownership or what have you, and you notice that as long as that white female happens to be 51%, then she qualifies as a minority and a double minority because she's white, she's among the minority in business ownership, and she happens to be a female, right? So you look at that based on population dynamics, and that automatically tells you this whole thing about DEI was number one, not as much targeted towards blacks as much as it was targeted towards minorities, which includes that LGBT.
I agree.
All right. So when we talk about that, we need to really deal with the real problem. And as it relates to the riots, let me tell you something right now. Listen, in the black community, I'll be the first to acknowledge, we do have intractable problems that are not going to be solved in one conversation. But what I'm going to say about that as well as the reason why the black community becomes so infuriated, all right, is when you see gross negligence of justice or misjustice happening and nobody does anything. When this guy kneeled on this man's neck, we're going back to George Floyd. Look, if he had done something when he was subdued and on the ground, what was the real reason for kneeling on his neck except to inflict fatal harm? What was it?
I can tell you exactly what it was, and I can tell you why you're not recognizing the problem. Because the opinion polls, and I'm not saying right or wrong, the opinion polls have changed on George Floyd since I last spoke with you. You know why?
Why?
All the body cam footage came out. You know what? You know why? Because he was there for 12, 15 minutes, asked to be put in the car, they put him in the car, asked for air conditioning, gave him air conditioning, asked to be taken out of the car, they took him out of the car. He wouldn't stop moving. People have watched it now and go, you know what? It's not what I thought it was. You know how many times he was arrested before that? 9. He shouldn't have been. You know what would have saved him? 3-strike policy. He robbed a woman at gunpoint with a child in the house. And so white people look at it, young white people, right, who you have to understand during COVID, this is a whole generation of people. White people did not have any fucking opportunities during COVID. They didn't get to go to the graduation, college, black, white, all of them, right? It's a generation that's pissed. Rightfully so, they got screwed. I think we can agree on that. They're going, I watched my city burn down for a guy who was arrested 9 times and committed violent crimes against women. What?
Now, you know, let me say
that's a travesty of justice. He shouldn't be out in public.
Let me say this to you.
How many felonies does President Trump have on his record? Yeah, he was still allowed to occupy the most.
No criminal felonies.
He has no criminal felonies, but he's got moral felonies, which would, if there was a court of justice for that, he probably would be tried a long time ago. I mean, let's talk about it.
Is this where we all get on board with crazy white bitches who accuse men of rape?
No,
like, I thought we'd find. She accused 26 men of rape, that crazy broad.
Here's the reality, though. And when you look at the convergence of this new agenda where you're going strictly into blue cities, why is it that most of those blue cities also happen to be occupied, the areas they're going in are heavily occupied by minorities? Why is that so?
Well, black people tend to vote Democrat, and they're run by Democrats. Detroit, you can look at it. You can look at Chicago. Is that what you mean?
I mean, no, that's not what I'm asking you at all. What I'm asking you is, like I said, with this all-out assault right now, just last night they were talking about something in Chicago, right? But at 1 o'clock in the morning, you had people in military gear, what have you, helicopters and all this kind of stuff like this here, not just knocking doors down, but dragging people out.
Because it's the murder capital of the country. You just said black people are more harmed by this. We don't want to take out murderers?
No. I think really what truly was you confusing what I'm trying to say to you.
Are you about the National Guard in Chicago?
No, what I'm trying to say to you is this, though. If we're going to talk about the problem, let's talk about the problem in its totality. The fact about it is, when you talk about white America being pissed, white America is going to always find a reason that doesn't fit their narrative or what have you. But what white America fails to talk about, and what never ceases to amaze me, is the fact that the biggest threat is not going to come from blacks. The biggest threat is coming from within. You look at the average person that's been committing some of the most heinous crimes over the days, it's 22 to 29-year-old white males, right? Look at how
no, it's just not true, man. Violent crime, you just said, like you said, a small percentage of the country, about 12 to 13%, 50% of the violent crime. But the murder, a 12 times likelihood.
That's a skewed stat.
If you just, so you don't listen to them?
No, I said that particular stat is skewed.
It's not skewed. These are from the FBI, DOJ. And you know what else we look at? We look at Roland Fryer from Harvard, who conducted it, black guy, black professor, really respectable guy, honorable man, conducted a study, and he came out and he said, yeah, all of my research says that black men are 0% more likely to be shot by police officers than whites. Black people got so mad at him, he reconducted the study, a black man from Harvard, and he came to the same conclusion, and now he's not black enough.
Wait, so let me see if I understand you clearly.
Yeah.
You're saying, according to this guy's statistics, right, that black people are 0% less likely to be shot by a white police officer.
A liberal professor at Harvard, yes, and he conducted it twice. Because black people said what you're saying. He goes, look, I was as surprised as you. I was trying to find how much worse it is. My data showed me it's not. He reconducted the study an entire time. Now, he did come to the conclusion that an officer is 18 times more likely to be shot than a black man by an officer. This is a black liberal who studies statistics. At what point do you listen to him?
He may be a black liberal.
And I don't believe him.
That's skewed too.
Institution, and if he comes out and says something of the sort, there's no telling the backlash that he may not get. Listen, there are token blacks in every society. I mean, all you have to do is look back throughout.
And there we go, right? And Uncle Tom, this guy, come on.
No, but here's my thing, Steve. Right? I'm not alleging that the guy wasn't Uncle Tom, but let's be frankly honest. How many shootings have happened in most recent history that have involved black men that have been unarmed, and you sit here and use that analogy that black men are 0 times. Listen, as a totally blind individual, listen, I'm even apprehensive. That was an incident where the police stopped us, and it was my cousin and I. My cousin is a retired military veteran, what have you, right? And immediately when we got out of the car, out of fear of possibly being shot, the first thing I did was raise my cane and say, officer, I said, listen, I am totally blind. Before we get out of hand with this, right? Now, I shouldn't have to react like that. But when you start looking at what's really happening in this country, many times because see, here's the deal. I don't care if you put on a uniform. You can't legislate the heart of a man and his intent, all right? And many times these officers do allow that badge to give them impunity to operate and exercise their racism. Let's be honest here, Steve.
Some of them do. By the way, I just find it funny that when I came up and shook your hand, you didn't tell me you were blind this whole time. I was like, I must have woke you up. You could have said, dude, I'm blind. I was like, oh, my bad. I'm sorry. This whole thing. You just throw that out there like a cluster bomb. I'm like,
say you should have waved his cane when you came in.
I feel like an asshole in the middle of the room.
That's what I told you when you said, does he sleep behind the glasses? I was like, no, he just can't see you.
Hey, look, I thought you was making a joke. I said, oh my God, here's this condescending asshole here.
It's okay. He forget he blind sometimes.
I had no idea.
No, man, but you know, man.
Yeah, but I do. I agree. You can't legislate what's in a man's heart.
Yeah.
But you can't throw out everything. You can't go, that stat skewed. That black guy from Harvard who was always a liberal who did it twice, it's skewed. You can't throw it out.
How often do you see black police killing unarmed white people?
Actually,
how often do you see that? How often do you see that?
Well, I tell you, actually, the stats show that when you're dealing with armed white people versus black armed people, white armed people are more likely to be shot by the cops than black.
White armed people are more likely to kill police officers. Look at what happened in Kansas where those 5 police officers.
Let's call the stats a wash on that. Here's what I do know. Everyone wanted the body cam footage, and I agree. I was like, we should have body cam footage. We should have accountability for police officers, right? And we were to believe after the era of, remember, we went through Trayvon Martin, Tamir Rice, Mike Brown, obviously George Floyd. There were so many that you could use as examples. We thought that we'd have a rash of body cam footage showing us the police brutality. You haven't seen body cam footage of note in the last year. Once that footage came out, it's about a 20-to-1 ratio where you see someone getting violent with an officer. We have not seen what we thought we would see. And now people are going, okay, so maybe not the body cam footage, right? We thought we'd see all the abuse.
Wait a minute. Before you jump off of that point, what about the body cam footage where we see white people and white police and the white citizen is being belligerent with the police, but the police showing extreme restraint in dealing with that person. Whereas black people, we reach for your wallet, bow, you get shot. I got a phone in my hand, bow, you get shot.
And
I'm not doing anything, bow, you get shot.
The stats don't reflect it. But white people are being killed in record numbers right now, and they're pissed. And if you keep just not listening to them, look, like you said, white people are the majority of this country. You have young white people who are getting more and more mad. I'm just telling you the truth.
What they mad
and they have
at?
the
Black
guns.
people
They're
hold
mad
no
because
power.
this
Why
thing.
they mad at
Here's
black
why.
people?
Here's why. They go, look, I'm 12 times more likely to be killed by a black person than you are a white person. And you go, well, that doesn't count. They go, look, my dad's business got burned down.
Yeah. And where?
My city got burned down. I've been accused of being a racist, even though I'm not. And I'm looking at this right now, and I'm not allowed to have an opinion, and I can't go into certain neighborhoods because I get my ass kicked. And then you just say, yeah, but you've had systemic power. That is a surefire way to breed racism.
Let's be frank about that, Steve. Now, first of all, here's why I disagree with you emphatically, right? Number one, when it is historically proven when there are riots, and this is the crazy part, most times we as blacks, we tend to riot in our own neighborhood for the same reason why we're not 12 times likely to kill a white person, because of that fact that the penalty is going to be much harsh, okay? If black people really were the kind of threat and menace to white people as we're going to sit here and say that they are, never mind the stats, there's no way in the world that most of us would still be here, because guess what? You guys will find a way to deal with the problem if it is from a multiplicity of angles, all right? So, like I say, when I'm saying this right now, when it comes to
did deal with it.
who controls that narrative, Steve?
We did deal with it. You know, we dealt with it in liberals in blue cities, cashless bail, catch and release. We did everything that was demanded. Defunded the police in certain neighborhoods. Guess
but
what?
no blacks ever asked for defunding the police officers.
They have.
Well, here's the deal.
Now, I will say it's mostly.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, it's mostly black women. It's mostly black activist women. And they're not representative of black men. I get that.
Just like the guy who killed the lady on the bus that you were talking about earlier, right? He doesn't represent black America and what he did. I mean, listen.
Here's where he does. Just listen to me here. Here's where he does. Here's where he does to a lot of people. And this is what I'm just trying to, because last time I sat and listened, but I want you to hear something really important. Here's where he does. Young white, that person's parents, that person's relatives, look at it and go, wait a second. This guy was out 14 times, and the reason he was out 14 times was because a black female judge, in the name of restorative justice, who has received funding from NGOs, said, we're going to have cashless bail and catch and release and the IOU policy in the name of racial justice. So people are going, my daughter's dead because it would have been racist to keep this guy in jail. You need to understand that, right? You understand it, though, right? Because you just made those same judgments about people who existed 150 years ago.
Yeah. But
this is someone's sister.
Her flawed judgment does not represent the opinion of black people, number one.
There you go. Okay, it represents a systemic correction.
Well, let's talk about systemic correction. And you know what the problem really is? When you defund our opportunities to provide adequate psychiatric institutionalization for those kind of people, that wouldn't have happened. Because let me tell you something, even as a black person, as a judge, if you come before me 11 times with all of the information that you provided me with, you know what, before I release you, you know what, I'm going to have you committed to an institution, because number one, the greater good is for me to preserve public integrity, and that's on both sides of the spectrum. I don't give a damn if you're black or white.
Why do you think they're not committing him to an institution?
Because there's no funding available.
No, they were shut down in the name of restorative racial justice.
And his family,
that's why he wasn't institutionalized.
And his family
he should have been in prison
too. His family pushed against it in certain like there's some of them cases where they were in court. His family was saying, "Don't put him in there."
I know, and who gives a shit?
But I'm just saying that's part of it. But when you only include the part that says the judge, you're not giving the whole story, and that's what media ends up doing. That creates these tensions in people. They straw man conversations and only tell part of it.
No, it's not as strong. The tension is there. That's what I'm trying to tell you. The tension is already there. White people are afraid to go in black neighborhoods because
so should black people be afraid to go to school because a white person go come shoot the school up? Because every time we see that, that's what keeps happening.
It's not even close.
But now you're going to ignore. Now you're going to ignore that.
I'm scared to go to church.
You're scared to go to church, but you're sitting in the barbershop with almost 12 black men. Come on, Steve. Now let's be realistic.
Who do you think's more at risk sitting down right here?
Exactly. He know he's not in danger around us.
No, I'm much more risk.
We don't do that.
And here's an irony.
You know, I just watched my friend die, right?
Steve, let me say this. Know what bothers me about white people, and this is kind of
everything.
No, not everything. Not everything.
But we smell like wet dog or something. I've heard all this stuff.
Let me tell you what bothers me about white people. Let's be honest here, because I work with a lot of white people, so I have nothing against them at all. Let me be honest with you. But the problem the biggest problem that I have is that you constantly get bombarded with the excuses, all right? When you really come down to it, let's be honest, man, and let's be really truthful with one another. Ask yourself, what do you expect when you look at architectural oppression, economic depravity, and social disparity? What would you call it?
Bad decisions.
Huh?
Bad decisions.
Bad decisions.
Yeah, I think right now in 2025, it's bad decisions. I think everyone can make better decisions.
And you know what? I'll even go here with you. In all fairness, I think that's absolutely true. So my question for you is, how do we move past this?
Yeah. Okay.
How do we move past
I
this?
agree with you. I agree. And I think maybe we'll find some common ground here. If we agree there is personal accountability and bad decisions, and I think we also all agree that feminist white are the worst demographic in the country, along with lesbians.
There's a great book that says, and they were her property. See, that's what I'm saying.
Like I'm telling you, like believe me, I don't have a. Hold on. Let me just clarify, and I mean that. Angry white feminist bitches and lesbians, because if they didn't vote, we wouldn't have half of the shit. But. And this is one thing I appreciate about black men, that white men are so, black men can talk about these things, and black men are okay being masculine. White men are told it's sexist. There's a lot there. Personal accountability decisions. Now just take that and apply it. What you kind of just did here is you blamed white people, without realizing it, for systemic discrimination, and that removes autonomy from a white person to be accountable and also rewarded for their good decisions. So if we agree it's bad decisions, personal accountability, we'd all be against reparations, and we'd all be against the criminal justice reform.
I'm definitely for reparations.
I'm for reparations.
So
see, that to me, you said excuse. Yeah. That sounds like an excuse to me.
You ain't paid me back. You ain't paid me for what you owe me.
What did I take from you?
You can't start another bill
what did I take
until you pay this old bill.
What did I take from you?
You didn't take but your ancestors.
But you just said you.
Well, when I say you, I meant it as a euphemism.
But can you understand why white people hear it and get pissed off?
Yeah.
Because I can take shit.
But they're not mad about the advantages that were built into their lives.
So you want young people to pay? Sounds like an excuse.
Nobody wants to address. And
Sounds like an excuse.
Even without paying us back, Steve, no, my thoughts are on this here. Give us an opportunity to exercise our ability and our autonomy. Let me give you a perfect example. There's a gal right now, her name is Joy Reid. Look up her.
I know Joy Reid. She's out of her mind.
Look up her educational background. You don't think Harvard gave her a degree just because she was a black person or DEI, do you?
I think she's an idiot.
Okay, so
but not because she's black, but she's an idiot.
Okay, so you're entitled to that.
I think Van Jones is smart, and I disagree with him. Joy Reid has said things that are so verifiably untrue. It's insane.
Okay, so but you know, as a man, I'm gonna indulge you and say, hey, you know what? I'm not gonna indulge you. I'm gonna respect your opinion, your frame of thought on that, right? I beg to differ tremendously, but nevertheless, though, that's why we're having this open discussion. But let's really talk about where we need to go from here on, and that is the fact that black people have every sense of entitlement as it relates to having reparations. And I'm going to tell you why, right? Because nobody has ever been as more loyal to white people despite the treatment than black people have, right? Nobody. You show me one race. You know what? They make options and opportunities available when other ethnicities come here or what have you that we will never get a chance to have, right? And then they turn around and tell us, stop asking about reparations. Whenever we want to ask for equality and fairness, it's a problem. So white America.
So it spends several $1 trillion. When is it enough?
Wait, spend $7 trillion on what? What did we spend it on?
Let's go back to Lyndon Johnson model.
Lyndon Johnson, you're talking about the wrong poverty? Is that what we're talking about?
Yeah.
1965?
Why was that done?
All right, but here's the deal.
What about the Department of Education?
Here's the deal. So now you're saying the Department of Education. Let's go back to the Department of Education.
Okay, so my point is these were. Hold on. No, I didn't answer your question.
All right.
The reason that this was given, right, when you're talking about the Great Society program, the reason when you look at the Model Cities program, urban planning, $8 billion into Detroit, adjusted for inflation, the reason that, and I don't know if you know this, black students in this country get more spending per pupil than white students. I don't know if you know that. That's an actual fact. Even in impoverished neighborhoods through public funding. These were the reparations that were asked of white people throughout each decade, given, and then we're told, no, that's not the real one. They were given, whether you like them or not, whether you think they work or not. And by the way, I think they're dog shit. I think we should completely suspend the federal Department of Education. I think the Texas state could do a much better job. But those were done in the name of racial reparations because they were demanded,
Steve,
and now it's not enough.
Listen, you say that, but Steve, listen.
But
you say we should suspend the Department of Education.
I agree with you, because it's so. Why would they do it correctly?
It's not just because it was done in the name of racial justice that it was done incorrectly.
That's the reason for it.
I'm saying that's the reason for it. But along the way of trying to achieve racial justice, you just did it wrong.
But let me ask you.
That's my point.
You said
people did it the way we were
Your
asked.
reasoning was right. Your approach was wrong.
So now you make some 20-year-old kid pay?
No, but you came out and said something that was interesting just now. You said that you're against the Department of Education, right? Let me tell you
Federal
something.
Department.
Yeah, Federal Department of Education. Let me tell you something that has come up in a lot of circles that I'm always talking about as a person with a disability. The Department of Education does a lot more in terms of, even with the enforcement of Section 504, right? 504 says that you must have accommodations for individuals with disabilities, right? Perfect example of it, when you walked in or someone just walked in, did you hear what that thing said? Right, left. Go down to Austin. Let me tell you something. When you suspend the Department of Education, you're also telling the remain 36 million people in this country who have disabilities, you know what? Screw you. Figure it out. We don't have to do anything, okay? And this is another reason, going back to what we said with the Black America. If you don't have certain mechanisms in place to ensure that there is a fair and level playing field, right? Guess what? The controlling party that's in power, or what have you, are not going to say, hey, wait a minute, let's look at this other disenfranchised segment of the community or what have you, and see how can we provide
I'll disabuse you of that notion.
Okay,
Let me disabuse you of that notion.
Go ahead.
Over $3 trillion adjusted for inflation, right? The Department of Education, early 70s. Okay, before that, they were run by states. Over $3 trillion. What are math scores? What are literacy scores now? In both?
Depends on what part of the country you're asking that about.
Across the board. Across the board.
You can't go there because I'm going to tell you why you can't go there.
Hold on. Let me. I'll answer the question. Because then I'll show you an example of something that actually works, because we need solutions. They're across the board down. In other words, $3 trillion, test scores are worse. And they're even worse in poor areas where there's more spending. Do you know where black students in New York City actually do really well? White Catholic schools, where they have more students per teacher, on average 35 plus. In other words, they have fewer teachers. It's done privately. Charter schools, school choice is something I support. That means for everyone in this country. Can't do it because it's racist.
Let's look at the academia, though, okay?
That's why it's being fought.
When you start talking about that, what have you, when you talk about test scores, we can go just north versus south or what have you. Let's look at the quality of education that's in these schools or what have you. Are you going to tell me that it's a standardized academic agenda that's promoted throughout this country? Or is it a fact that some people have a different education level than black? Listen, I work with people.
They're bad across the board.
I work with people every day that are out the north that have far excelled in
that's absolutely true.
Than we have in the
bad
south.
and worse. There's no good.
Right.
There's no good. There's shit in here. And what I'm saying is, here's something where we could find common. I've proposed this, many people have, where we go, look, instead of giving money to a school, like you say, some of these schools suck, right? Instead of just putting, let's say the average spending is $15,000 per student. That's a rounded number. It's anywhere from 13 to 50, okay? If instead of putting that money in the administrative costs at a school, what you do is you say, okay, that's a grant, that's a voucher that attaches to the student, and they can take it to any school they want, so they have to compete. So that kid can now choose where they go to school. Can't do it because it's racist. That's why it's been fought. People say black kids would still be stuck in shit schools than white kids.
Why?
Well, see, that comes back
because they wouldn't be able to transport themselves out of a bad neighborhood.
Okay, so
but right now they're stuck with one school.
So when you start asking those whys and go down the rabbit hole of why and start asking, okay, well, why would somebody say that? Well, this is why.
Well, I'll tell you why they really say it. Because of the teachers unions.
Because of teachers unions?
Yeah. It doesn't make. In other words, if
I get
a black kid right now has to go to
because
one.
in certain communities where they don't have certain resources, it's a lot of kids. Once again, I've lived in. I've raised my kids, graduated 3 kids from. I've been afforded some things in this community that some people down south don't have.
Yeah,
right.
That's a fact.
And some of these school events, I'm questioning them like, how the hell y'all expect us to have jobs and still transport these kids to and from these events all throughout the day? But if them people down there had to do it,
so you think what we're doing now is better?
Because they ain't got transportation. Half of them ain't got transportation.
I think we need to go back to the real truth and the real truth.
Because that's what I'm saying. Because they're in impoverished areas, and we already know, based on how we see.
So then how do we fix it? We have to pay for a
areas
car,
don't even have
a house?
grocery stores.
No, of course not.
Those same areas
that's
don't.
horseshit.
There's food
I see
deserts.
everyone
Come on now, you don't know
everyone here
about
has a
food deserts.
smartphone. You can literally order any food that's ever existed on Earth to any municipality cheaper than ever.
If you're in an area that already has a lack of resources and you're already low income, how you gonna order something?
Amazon, one click.
But see, here's the deal.
We're talking about food deserts in 2025. Come on.
I think there's a broader problem that we will not discuss. And you know what that is? You've got to go all the way back. This has been an insidious process that's been at work. And the bad part about it is, as long as we as white and black America keep fighting among each other, we'll never see the big picture. You go back to 1982 under Charlotte T. Eisenberg, who was the Department of Secretary under Ronald Reagan, Department of Education. She wrote a good expose many, many years later called The Deliberate Dumbing Down of America. She kind of patterned that after that B.F. Skinnerian behavioral modification, and it ties all into the founder before the Department of Education, which was General Education Board, where they say, you know what, we don't need more painter, we don't need more artists, or we don't need more poets. We just want good cogs in a wheel that are easily taught, that we can mold under our own hand. That mantra still holds true today. So you got to look at that. You got to look at where we come from. We come from a nation that was industrious, and coupled with innovation to now, everybody tends to do things like you say with your smartphone. You know why? Because pictures keep you from looking at things contextually. All right. So when you think about this educational system, you got to go back to what changed in this educational system and why we're where we are. Because you can't just simply say, yeah, but you can't just simply say that everybody wants to be dumb or everybody in the South.
I didn't say everybody wants to be dumb.
Okay, well, tell you this too. Here's another problem why scores are so much lower in this country, especially when you talk about black America.
Because money doesn't fix a problem. It's that
money doesn't.
We've thrown money at the problem, and it doesn't do shit.
Solve the problem at the core root of it and start reforming the real academia, all right? That's where you solve the. So you know what you tell people? We're going to operate in a system of meritocracy. God damn it, you will eat what you kill. If you're giving you $50,000 to go to school and you decide that you don't want to, or you fail to adhere to what's being presented before you, then shame on you.
I agree. You do away with DEI, you do away with the sex affirmative action, do away with all of it. Eat what you kill.
Do away with DEI, but make it fair across the board.
But that's what I'm saying.
I agree.
If you're going to do away with DEI, if you're going to do away with DEI, you got to make sure that the merits are properly being counted. Because the reason why DEI was invented, reason why affirmative action was invented, is because you'd have two qualified candidates, same qualifications, but one would get in strictly because his name was Johnny and the other one's name was Jamal. Well, we're going to take Johnny. Because naturally, Johnny's going to be better at it, but they got the same qualifications. That's why affirmative action was instituted in the first place.
DEI came in because of shrinking white feminists wanted to claim credit.
That's a snapshot you can present it in, but
I agree with you. I agree.
That's a snapshot you can present it in, but I'm just saying, like, the reason why.
No, what I'm saying is,
you go down to ask why.
I'm being flippant, but the truth is, black people were being admitted in record numbers if they had the same qualifications before DEI and affirmative action. White shrieking feminists wanted to take credit for something that was already happening because people had become less racist, so they can say, tag my white name on there, DEI. See what I did for black people? It's white guilt. And what I'm trying to tell you is young people who have nothing to do with any of this, their guilt is running out, and you can't escape the violent murder rate. You can't escape them losing opportunities and being blamed for being racist when they're not. And you want those kids to pay reparations? You're creating a generation of racists. That's what's going to happen. And
then you're going to have a...
We're not creating DEI.
Then you're going to have...
We as a black community, we're not creating a generation of racists. You know who's creating that generation of racists? Those older white people are feeding that into their kids. See, all white people are not racist. I don't believe that.
No, of course not.
But the ones that come from families that have that inherent gene or trait in them, they're passing that on.
How?
See, I look at this. The gentleman that got killed, Charlie. He was killed by a white man, a young white man, right? From the generation that you're talking about that's getting fed up.
Well, he was also banging a
Now, his dad had one ideology. He followed another ideology. That's out the same household. He didn't come from nowhere black. He wasn't hanging around with no bunch of black people.
I know, I agree. I'm not saying
that mindset. His daddy put whatever was into him. His dad either put that into him or his rebellion from his father caused him to think like that. That we're not creating that. Black people
that has nothing to do with what I agree with you.
You ever seen over in Africa? You see an elephant with a bird riding on his back. That elephant ain't worried about that bird because that bird not stopping him from doing the thing he want to do. We're the bird.
No.
We're the bird. We're not stopping white Americans from doing anything.
You know what? The bird just burned down $4 billion worth of cities and 60,000 assaults.
No.
And what young white kids? No, hold on. You got to listen.
The bird might get blamed for it.
Right.
The bird is half as big as the elephant.
Steve, you act like it's only blacks that was burning it down.
What about the Black Wall Street?
You know what I said earlier, and you listen is when you have a young white person going, okay, why is this happening? And people go, Black Lives Matter. And they go, well, hold on a second. I have an opinion on Black Lives Matter. They go, well, sit down, shut up. Okay, now silence is violence. And that kid goes, well, what do I do? By the way, you're on the hook for reparations, even though his father, his grandfather, his great-great-grandfather didn't own a slave, and he's still 12 times more likely to be killed by a black person the other way around. What I'm saying is society is going to create a generation of racists. What do you say to that young white kid? What do you say to him?
Stop watching, stay off of TikTok.
Stop reading stats.
Stop paying attention to what these talking heads are saying, because they're leading you down the wrong path. They're leading you down a path of paranoia and conspiracy theories.
What if their interactions with black people in general are quite negative? Well, we're in it now, and we're going to continue next Thursday, October 16th, on the next installment of Black and White on the Gray Issues. Do you realize that you could take all the white people in this country, and if you're going to add up everyone where you could actually trace the lineage to slave owners or had any involvement, you would end up with maybe 2 or 3%? You shouldn't be getting anything.
That's
and Charlie Kirk shouldn't be shot.
So my question is,
well, how is this? What is it? How is this relevant? So here's something that's important, right? Because Charlie Kirk was assassinated. Let's be clear about this, and we're both agreeing because people believed a lie.
Somebody got to get them sweet potatoes out the ground. Somebody got to do that. White people not gonna do that.
Of course we will.
Once again, when the work got hard, that's when they went and got slaves.
Yeah, white people don't know hard work.
Indian-
Can I ask you something real talk? While we're having real talk, why do young black men fight in packs?
Say what again?